by making it shakeable, what you're doing is you're indirectly buffing armies that can shake a lot. So things like Elemental or whatever, Kalandra's Theme, World War, Chain Gang, Xerxes 2 lists, Machinations of Shadow. So this is a huge buff for Hordes, and a small buff for Colossals as well.
Huge buff for Hordes, big buff, well, yeah, small buff for Colossals. Semi-Auto Magic, tell us what exactly is the errata?
So the errata reads that during your control phase, after allocating focus, if this model is affected by Shadowbind, it can spend 1 focus point to cause the Shadowbind status to expire. During your control phase after allocating focus, this model is blind. It can spend 1 focus to cause blind status to expire.
Okay, Menoth John, you're a troll player. How does this change Colossals? Is this going to make Mountain King any good?
Well, I think that, first off, Mountain King was okay, at least in one list before that, and that was Berka. But the fact that now you have, as I think Mark put it just absolutely perfectly, it takes Gorman down to a 2-point model finally. He's not a 5-point model in a 2-point shell. And I think that we're going to get to the big errata for the Mountain King here in a little bit. But I think that I think these are wonderful effects that increase the enjoyment of the game.
I think so too. I think my comment to all of this is it means that stuff that we were putting down just to control other pieces, big pieces like Colossals, those are now no longer just a crux piece that you have to handle Colossals. All right, let's move on. Once again, we have shake effects during the control phase. We can Shadowbind, and Blind can now be shaken. So let's move right on to that applies to Fury as well.
A quick thing I'll inject here that John just made me aware of is the fact that we also have now 3 rules for War Machine and Hordes. They've just released Prime Mark II and Primal Mark II, the what are equivalent to the little books that you get in your starter sets. Those are now free on the website. So the rules have gone free. The errata has always been free, so now there's no excuse for not knowing all those rules.
Yeah, that's right. That's a pretty big deal for those of us that say, I'm never going to buy the rulebooks because they're too expensive. I'll learn it from my buddy. Okay, moving right along, guys, to Pack Fury and Fury Points errata. It now says, replace the last sentence of the 4th paragraph with the following. When a war beast in a pack is destroyed by a friendly attack or as a result of damage transferred from its battle group controller, however, Fury cannot be reaved from the pack. What does that mean? What's the effect in the game? Marc Andre.
It means you cannot, because previously you could load up your beast pack with Fury. You could kill the other models in the unit. As long as you didn't kill the leader, your Warlock could immediately reave that Fury, in a sense. So it meant that you could basically go down to 0 with your Warlock, then kill a few beast pack models, like a few Blight Wasps or whatever, and then Absolonia was back to camping 3 instead of 0. So I think it was an unintended loophole that they closed. I think that's a big thing.
Manoth John, anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think this kind of is consistent with everything that Privateer has done since Mark II, to be honest with you. If you remember back in Mark I, there was an awful lot of running around killing your own stuff to gain benefit from it. And this, I think, is it just furthers that design philosophy that's been around ever since, 2010 or whenever Mark II started to happen. So I think it's great. I mean, anything that screws Legion, I'm all about.
All right, so just moving on down the document, the next big red blotch is Trenchbuster Flank has just been slightly reworded. So they've now taken it from replacing the words flank trencher to flank another trencher. Semi-Auto Magic, clarification of words, does that change anything?
It changes nothing because the card was already this way. This is literally just an update to a bad wording in the book.
Okay, perfect. Yep. All right, so we're going to move down to a small one. We'll probably just skip right over this thing. Remove the second sentence of temporal shift. Okay, no big deal. Moving right along. All right, I got to move it right to Marc Andre. Marc Andre, you are currently playing one of the most solid Haley 2 lists out there. This probably doesn't affect you that much.
In my opinion, it almost completely removes the typical Signard pairs game against Circle and Legion. I don't see how I can beat Veil 2 now with any list, honestly.
Wow. All right, that's fair. All right, coming from people who are not playing Signar, for me, I don't play Haley 2 that often. I've just never mastered her. I'm more of a try to make hijinks happen with Ekane and Siege. Coming from non-Signar players, Menoth John, your feelings on the change to temporal shift?
I'll be back in a couple minutes.
Okay.
He's going to the bathroom to go puke because.
No, I honestly, to be very truthful, the implications of this change to matchups for Signar, I have to take Marc Andre's word for it, because obviously I'm not a top tier player by any stretch of the imagination. I like the fact that it is gone, simply from the standpoint that I like a game that allows you to play the game the way you want to play it, and that feat, along with Denny 2's, prevents you from doing that. And I think that if it ends up being such a negative thing that it eliminates an entire matchup for an entire faction, that's bad. But for right now, I feel glorious about it. To hell with it.
Yeah, okay.
I would agree. I would agree that the change is good for the game, like in a vacuum. Yeah.
Okay.
Marc Andre, I just don't want to have Signar basically have an auto lose situation. As much as I hate that damn Haley 2, I don't want a whole faction to go belly up against us, especially Legion, for God's sake. Let's not benefit them.
So Marc Andre, let's get into the nitty-gritty here. So what this does, what does this, when he gets back from his thing, we'll ask him what this changes, but Semi-Auto Magic, let's move over to you. Give me the ruling and what is taken out. What is the wording that's taken out with taking this out of temporal shift?
I will just bring the card up here. Since we're using War Room, it'll only be 8 to 20 minutes.
Yeah. Basically,
the portion that was taken out is the selection that says that your opponent gets to choose which order you activate the models in. All right, card library, and we'll pull up these Signar cards and Major Victoria Haley. There she is. So as her feat currently reads, affected models units activate. Affected model units activate at the start of their controller's next activation phase in the order you choose.
Okay, so we're taking out in the order you choose.
Yeah, so as the Haley player, you no longer get to say, this guy goes first, then this guy, then this guy.
Right. Okay, so
it's just down to enemy models units activating while in Haley's control area forfeit either their movement or their action during their activations as their controller chooses. Temporal shift lasts for 1 round.
All right, Marc Andre, now that you've ordered your lunch, tell us, let's get the nitty-gritty. What exactly does this change for you?
Well, a lot of matchups that are typically difficult because you're outgunned or out-beasted, I guess. Specifically, I want to point to Veil 2. You end up, right now anyway, before the Errata, you could control Veil. You could stop her from getting a model in the right spot to just double oblit Haley to death with her feet. Now, so what you would do is you basically make Veil activate before Beasts or any model that could get close enough to Haley to be used as an arc node. Now, that is not an option. That model will go first. It might, if it's a Seraph, it will slipstream a model into an even better spot. And then Veil will, honestly, pretty trivially just Oraculous it. Boom, boom, obliteration. You also use that feat, the order part anyway, to jam up things like Raven or Kruger or Radagast, where the use of the feat at specific times, specific points, allows you to disrupt, basically, what they're going to be doing with their
basically, you're just making it so that they can't unpack at all. So they get in position to make their strike, and then you feat, and that shuts down that strike.
That's right. I mean, honestly, I think this change and the fact that, anyway, nothing in Hordes was actually nerfed or even really downgraded at all by this Errata. Makes those factions much better now.
Mm-hmm.
Sweet. All right. So, Menoth John, on the side of the non-Signar players, you've already commented a bit that it's upsetting to see some of the balance changes. But from a positive, do you see anything good about this change as a non-Signar player, as a Hordes player?
Well, I mean, I guess I I think it's pretty easy from a non-Signar perspective to find a lot of good things to say about it, just because being able to activate your models and not end up being able to activate your army in the order that you want to activate it is always a good thing. I mean, you look at armies like Protectorate, which is an order of activation style army. Being able to get things in the right place is certainly an advantage. I'm wondering if, while this certainly damages Haley 2's ability to execute the way she wants to in a lot of matchups, I'm wondering if this won't shift Signar to look at different casters that maybe have higher armor or some other mechanism within their ability to survive the double oblit. I mean, I see that for hordes, having transfers makes it a lot more survivable to a double oblit, but I'm not sure.
All right, so Marc Andre, for closing remarks on this, you've got a break world competition coming up. What are you going to do?
Well, it'll be up to the council. I mean, they have a few options. They can get us all to play pre-Errata, which is a bit weird because we won't be playing War Machine as it is. Or they could allow us to change our lists, which is a bit weird again because everything has been spoiled. All the other, like, we know what every country's playing now.
Yeah, that was another thing I should mention with things that have been released today. If you are keeping up on your information from the Moose Machine website or our Facebook page, you'll also see that today all the WTC lists were posted. So that was one of the things that struck me as really weird about this errata hitting now, is that we see all the lists and then suddenly, oh, by the way, half of these lists don't play the way they think they are.
Crix is the most popular faction at the event, so it affects a lot of those players too.
Yeah, big time, because the change, we're about to get some more changes. Let's move quickly on from that, because, I mean, this will be big. We could talk about this change. We probably will in the next episode of This Death Clock Has 60 Minutes. I know, Menoth John, you're going to be talking about it on the Sunday show at length.
Yep.
This whole change is going to be torn apart, body and soul, to just throw that out there. So let's move forward to just some slight changes to temporal flux and time projections. Semi-auto magic. Let's ask Marc Andre, because he'll have a better idea what they've changed here. What have they changed with temporal flux and time projection?
Temporal flux only affects friendly faction models now.
Okay.
It does not affect her a whole lot because she was going to be taking mostly friendly faction stuff to revive anyway. Mm-hmm. But it does hurt a bit, like, because she was going to be very good with Acosta, where you were going to be getting up to Def 17 with that new solo. Now that won't be the case. So, you'll probably see minor changes like that, where you'll be benching more of the mercs. I mean, you'll still need the support mercs. But if you were planning on having some melee mercs, or, that you wanted to tar pit with, you may not do so now. So you'll be relying more heavily on friendly faction, Signar infantry.
All right, same thing with time projection. The new wording is, during your control phase, this model can allocate focus points to Warjacks and Haley Prime's battle group that are in this model's control area. This model can channel spells through Warjacks and Haley Prime's battle group with the arc node advantage that are in this model's control area. What's the change there?
It was just a bit murky before. It was they're really just clarifying an infernal ruling on that. So really, they're just making it work like we all assumed it would.
Perfect. So all right. Fine. Menoth John, we've got a change to Anson Durst. It's actually just a clarification, because I believe on the card it said one thing, and in the book it said another. They've basically changed Eruption of Ass from a continuous fire effect to a damage type fire effect. How does that change Anson Durst if you hadn't seen the book?
It really doesn't change it that much. I mean, I think this is strictly just fixing something that was a goof up. Boy, all of a sudden, Eruption of Ash just became super awesome, however. And the High Reclaimer is just called, and although he didn't say much, I'm sure he would have liked his rule that way as well.
Exactly. He was like, hey, wait a second. I spent a lot of faith points to get that to happen.
Exactly.
Right, not a lot changed until we get to Crix, everybody. The next big change is Asphyxius the Hellbringer. His Bone Shaker has been changed. Replace the first sentence of Bone Shaker with the following. When this spell boxes a living or undead non-warcaster, non-warlock enemy warrior model, you can immediately take control of the model and make a full advance with the enemy model, followed by a normal melee attack. Then the boxed model is removed from play. Marc Andre, sorry to go to you because you're the one with the eidetic knowledge of what's on the cards originally. What's the change?
I honestly, I can't really think of anything because
So-
that's how I understood it worked from the get-go.
Yeah.
So actually,
It may just be, like, non-warcaster.
there is no change in the wording. What happened was two models had a slightly different wording on their end. Asphyxius 3 was one of the models, and I think the Caliban was the other one. So essentially
Yes.
what this errata did is it brought all of them into alignment, which is just what privateers always tried to do.
Yeah,
Sweet.
so anytime that an effect has the same name, they always try and make it so that it has the same wording across the board. And that's what we're seeing here.
Yep.
All right, so now it's time for me to cry a little bit. My beloved pistol race, the bane of Semi's existence, the chain attack death chill has been changed. We no longer get to just, I believe before, on the next activation, they had to choose between...
They had to forfeit, yeah.
Yeah, they had to forfeit. Now, it's just a stationary effect. Semi-auto magic, how does that change the pistol wraith?
Well, it means that suddenly they aren't locking down my prime axioms every freaking turn, and I can just dump one of the millions of focus that I have floating around my convergence army into my prime axiom and get him out of that problem.
Actually, it can't even stationary it because it's a colossal.
Oh, of course. Oh, wow.
That's right,
Yeah, I hadn't
so,
even thought of
yes.
that. Just
The
completely
pistol wraith
removes
is
it.
now garbage. Moving on.
If you were,
Yeah.
if your whole point with the pistol wraith was just to shut down colossals, which it really was what we were using it
that's what
for.
we're using it for.
I mean,
Yeah.
the thing that's interesting about it is that first off, the first thing I would do as president of War Machine and Hordes is I would change this rule from chain attack death chill to painting with Menoth John chain death chill, just to bring it in line with podcasts.
Right.
But honestly, you know, if you're shooting a most infantry, which is what's going to lock down and take the stationary, what actually gets worse is for infantry. In this case, you're probably just going to kill it with the damn pistol wraith in the first place.
Hey,
Unless
still,
go ahead.
he's still not a bad shot. He's still it's just your tactics are completely different with it. You're no longer
Exactly.
using it for what you were using it for.
Exactly. It's a 3-point model, isn't it, Marc Andre?
It's a 3-point model with 1412 stats.
Yeah, it's just unplayable garbage at this point. Thank God.
So he's being taken right out of my Thexus lists as of today. I don't know what I'm going to replace him with. Oh, probably another wrecker. All right. Tyrant Sword of Truth, Blades of Vengeance. Add the following to Blades of Vengeance. Blades of Vengeance lasts for 1 turn. Marc Andre, eidetic memory. What they've just added this sentence? It was probably just an oversight before.
Yeah, it didn't say that it had that it ended ever. So yeah,
I know,
they just-
right?
So
Yeah,
if
I mean-
anybody was actually letting you play that to go on forever, now you're not going to be able to do that anymore.
Now you got to go apologize to that guy for being a douchebag.
Yeah, pretty
Okay.
much.
I'm moving to Sergeant Nicholas Verendire, a long V name. Replace the words flank steelhead with flank another steelhead, so that's just another clarification on some wording. And now we're going to get to something that's going to make Menoth John pretty happy. The Mountain King gets an entire new ability. Not a big deal, right, Menoth John?
Not at all. I mean, he can miss with that Rat 5 all day long now. No, actually, I'm just kidding. I really like this. I think it's super fun. Now there's a reason why you pay extra points for the Mountain King versus the Glacier King.
Definitely.
They weren't going to drop the points of the Mountain King, but I love the fact that they gave him this extra thing. So you're essentially going to get double tap on the 10-inch spray if you get that kill shot with the melee. So you get in there, you spray once, you go and you punch your target to death, and then you go ahead and shoot another one on the death kill. I think it's neat.
Yeah, definitely. Hey guys, I gotta go back to work. Thank you for having me on.
Thanks for coming on.
No problem. You guys have a good one. John?
Yeah, thanks, Mark.
Always a
Mark.
pleasure as well.
Great talking to you, Marc Andre.
For sure. Bye.
Okay, so I am still here.
Good.
All right. And Will, I'm seeing something happening to Will's stream there.
Yep. He looks like he's trying to reconnect. We'll find
Okay.
out in just a second. I know he has had some update problems with Skype, as always. So I'm just going to dump Marc Andre out. There we go.
So I mean, more on the Mountain King. I think that this really opens up some very different play styles with the model as well. Being able to get them in there and shove them in to get that assault order in there, especially with Borka 2, I think is going to really open up some neat ideas around using his feet and being able to shove him further forward in that list. I think it's really neat.
Yeah, I think it's a really great change. We're going to see in just a second another couple of changes. They're really trying to bring, I think, the old Colossals and battle engines in line with sort of the new, I don't want to say power level of the new models, but it's bringing them in line at least with the design aesthetic of the new models. So
I agree.
You have the Mountain King and the Glacier King. They both are ranged models with a big punch at the front end and some support. And now we're seeing other little additions so that we can keep them going. So it looks like we've got Will back now.
I'm back. Sorry about that, guys. Just Skype issues. Do we still have Marc Andre?
No, Marc Andre has gone back to work.
Okay, perfect.
This is a special edition.
So now,
for any of you watching on YouTube, we are recording this basically at lunchtime for everybody. We're lucky enough to have a couple of people who work from their homes, and myself, who can take an hour off at lunchtime and get this out to everybody as a special edition. So we've moved on. We've moved on, Will, to the wonder that is the Siege Antimatrix.
Siege Antimatrix. So with this model is damaged by an enemy attack, it gains 1 rage token.
No. There's no enemy.
There's no enemy in there.
Oh,
That's
sorry.
the
Did I
big
say
change.
enemy? That's funny. So this model is damaged by an attack.
Yes. So that's
right.
it. Now you'd bring up your pain givers and you whip the shit out of him, and he's all up to full speed right away.
All right, Semi. Does this make the Siege Animatrix? Is this the change everybody was wanting?
I think, to tell you the truth, it really is. I have actually heard this change from people, literally saying, if only it wasn't enemy, this model wouldn't be horrible. The biggest problem with battle engines is priming that pump, is getting those tokens.
There's more. It doesn't specify the tail club anymore. He can now use the rage tokens to boost the range attacks too.
Wow.
Oh!
This is a battle engine that we might actually see on the table now.
I think we're going to be seeing it a lot, to be honest with you, when we get scoring players. All right, so that's a huge change, a good change, one that was needed. Let's move on to Legion. So good news for you, Semi. Some of your beloved Legion, particularly the Archangel, is getting a buff as well. What's happening is his Draconic Aura now... currently within 2 inches of this model, suffer the fire continuous effect. What does that mean?
So good. This is so much better
huge
than what we used to have. So everybody has an Archangel because, damn, is that a pretty model. And everybody wants to field an Archangel, and it's a nice little gun platform. But there was this problem where the back of every Archangel card was printed without an Animus. And this problem has plagued us for a long time, and it's great to see them actually printing the Animus for this model. What it was before is basically you would light up the Animus, and then if somebody decided to stop within 2 inches of you and for some reason hadn't killed your Archangel, they would then be lit on fire. And that never happens, because if anybody is putting something into melee with an Archangel, it's all over for the Archangel. So now we have Draconic Aura saying enemy models currently within 2 inches of this model suffer the fire continuous effect. It's short, it's simple, and it means that you can now charge an Archangel into a bunch of infantry, pop your aura, light everybody on fire, do whatever shooting or damage that you needed to do. Beginning in the next turn, half of those guys aren't there anymore to kill you off. Well, so theoretically,
let me ask you this. Could you, if you had a bunch of non-reach models all lined up in front of you, could you take and punch up this aura at the beginning of your activation, run the damn thing down the line of it, and light the whole thing on fire?
Enemy models currently within 2 inches of this model suffer the fire continuous effect. I feel like that shouldn't work, but just from the way I'm reading it, it does seem to work.
Well, hold on, because it's saying enemy models currently within 2 inches. Doesn't that mean...
that would mean it's a pulse.
It's a pulse, yeah.
Yeah, so you can't do this. This is not an aura, it's a pulse.
But what
Got
you
it.
can
Thank
do
you.
is if you're surrounded, you can pulse it. And if you need to just get rid of a whole crap ton of infantry, single point infantry, run it into the middle of the single point infantry pulse and take them all out. Either next round, basically.
One of my favorite things to do with an Archangel, and you can only do this on a few models, is this is a model with flight and trample, which means that what you can do is you can trample over small-based, medium, and large-based models. Now, you won't hurt the medium and large-based models, but if you find somewhere to land on the other side of it, you can trample over them, pop this aura, light things like maybe a caster on fire, make a swing at his nose. If you are able to knock a few points off, that fire might finish things up for you.
It's also an animus, which means you could cast it on other things too.
Like your caster.
Like your caster.
Thagrosh, Prime Thagrosh is gonna love this.
Or a beast that's just gotten surrounded and didn't quite die.
Itself. It is a self animus.
No, itself. But Prime Thagrosh loves him some wading into the infantry.
Fair enough. All right, let's move right down to the Blighted Nisk Grotesque. Just got a name change. It's now a Legion Blighted Nisk unit. Does that change much, George?
No, no matter how stinky the rose, it's not going to change if you change its name.
All right,
however, it does imply that you guys are going to get lucky enough to get more grotesque units.
That's true. We might actually see another... They can't actually make that bad a model again, can they?
I don't know. Mac tonight is still out there waiting.
It's true.
I feel like grotesque Warcaster coming on.
Oh, no.
All right, Caliban the Gravewalker Bone Shaker gets a change. Replace the first sentence of Bone Shaker with the following. When this spell box is a living or undead non-Warcaster, non-war, blah, blah, blah model, you can immediately take control of the model and make a full advance of the enemy model, followed by a normal melee attack, and then the box model is removed from play. What's the change here, guys?
I'm pretty sure this is another one bringing into line. I'm just bringing that up. This seems to be another one where they're just changing the wording so that it comes into line with all other effects of this type. All effects of this type are take control of a model, make a full advance, and then make a melee attack, and then get rid of it or whatever. Either get rid of it or it returns to the opponent's control.
All right, everybody, that is actually it for the errata. Let's just get some final closing thoughts. Unfortunately, Marc Andre isn't here. I know he's probably the saltiest right now about these changes. It's changing his tournament game entirely, and he's something's gonna have to happen before the WTC. Semi-auto magic thoughts.
I love the changes. A lot of the people who complain about problems with the fun of War Machine, their biggest argument has always been lack of player agency. They're always saying, well, feats like this remove my ability to choose. And I think bringing choice to a game for the player is always a better thing than removing choice. And I really like that. I feel the changes to Gargantuans are great. I want to see more Gargantuans on the table. We haven't seen the pickup the way we have on Colossals. I can't go to an event, even locally, without seeing Colossals on the table, but darned if I ever see a Gargantuan on the table. And I want to see... I got into this game for giant robots and beasts smashing each other in the face, and that's what I want to see.
Menoth John, thoughts, closing remarks.
I think it's absolutely fantastic. I have declared as president of War Machine and Horde today National The Game Is Fun to Play Again Day. And I'm also 100% in alignment with what George was saying, that, it's Privateer has made no mystery of the fact that they want people to play with more beasts than jacks. And this is a continuing work towards increasing the fun by removing fun-inhibiting effects in the game and allowing you to take your big stompy robots and your big hairy beasts and have fun with them. I am so excited to bust out my Mountain King with my Borka 2 list that I've been playing with and just see what a difference that change alone in the Mountain King will make. I think that it's going to really, really, really change the game with Doomy 2. It's going to be a lot of fun, and I look forward to the WTC players, who are the best players in the world, seeing how they're going to take this, and rather than cry about it, because they're all good players, how they're going to react to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And adapt.
That's exactly what's going to happen in a month from now. We're going to see all new lists. I think a lot of this changes huge tracks in the game. We just also got the comments from the guys on the feed. Something we haven't touched on at all, you guys, is how these changes affect the Denny 2 feat. We've seen a lot of Denny 2 lately. What's the change, Semi?
With Denny 2's feet?
Yeah, it's because Shadowbind is now shakeable. Her feet is now
her feet
shakeable.
Specifies Shadowbind.
Yeah, her feet does Shadowbind.
Okay, I thought it was just an effect, like the pistol wraith, but that makes perfect sense. That it's one of the things that I have noticed recently is that Privateer Press is trying to remove non-named effects. So things that do things that don't have a name, that are not covered under the rules, they're trying to get rid of. And I think that's partially to stop stacking, but it's really nice. So yes, the fact that, oh man, I would have, that, I'm just thinking back to several Denny 2 games that I won, or that I lost, sorry, against players that I could have shaken a jack and just run it right in. Playing Convergence, I always have 2 or 3 extra jacks just laying around.
Yeah, I think it takes away some of the grain. I mean, that's what I want to see more of. My feeling on all of this is I want to see more of those game-breaking devices being taken out, where you now have to build around worrying what one other dude is going to do with his feet or how that interaction works. I think that Privateer Press has taken a positive direction in that. There's still a zillion more of them, but some of the big ones have been...
So if you take a look at what Body and Soul gives you, okay, you start with the upkeeps out, which means that you've got Watcher in there. So one of the ways that Body and Soul was so punitive was the fact that you would bring your stuff forward. Watcher was already up, so that would propel Denny 2 forward right away. Everything was starting with Advanced Deploy. So essentially, what she could do was she had her Advanced Deploy stuff in there. Watcher would kick. The stuff would move forward, she'd charge a drudge in the ass, and then feet you so far behind your own lines that you couldn't advance into anywhere. Now, this you obviously can't shake infantry, but for beast-heavier lists, this really helps them overcome the issues with Body and Soul.
Yeah, that Body and Soul has been dominating in the last little while. So that's a big change. Okay, so Haley 2, Denny 2, Colossals, this is all pretty awesome. The things that have been giving non-Crix, non-Signar players headaches, giving Hordes guys headaches for years are changed, fixed, interesting. Everything's going to change in the next few months, particularly things like the WTC. Semi-Auto Magic will give you one last chance at closing remarks.
Well, just one thing I wanted to let John know, and all the people who are going to comment on the channel, that it's actually Pursuit and not Watcher. Watcher is Luke Hunt's jump into the middle. Pursuit is the one you're thinking about.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, but I think all around good changes. I like them, and I'm happy to see that the game is constantly evolving. I'm really happy to see the rules go up for free, because I can tell someone who's interested, hey, if you like it, try grab the rules off the website and check them out.
Yeah, having the rules for free, guys. Awesome thing for everybody. Awesome thing for everybody. Menoth John, last chance at closing remarks.
Thanks for having me on the show, guys. I really appreciate it.
Hey guys, thank you very much for joining us. Menoth John, you are you got us into this, so now we're in for a penny, in for a pound, and it's all your fault. My co-host Semi-Auto Magic, thanks for getting the stream up as fast as you could so that I could, feed into my inner wanting to be a news guy and do a special report. Thank you for joining us on the stream, guys. We'll have this up on our YouTube channel within the next 10 minutes, 20 minutes. If you have any further comments, jump in on our YouTube channel, make your comments there, get onto our Facebook page, rant and rave about all the things we just talked about that we got completely wrong. And if you have some feedback, some nice comments for Marc Andre to make him feel better about his day, leave those there too. We may have to send him some flowers or something, some tissues, that kind of deal. Thank you guys, and that was a special edition of Moose Machine